This is the Next Day Podcast, episode 103 with Mikel
And Tanyka.
where we have conversations on different topics. So, we're going to be having a three-topic episode today, and Tanika is going to share with us three topics are. Go ahead.
Okay, so Canada is going to potentially start covering costs for contraception and diabetes drugs. Um, Officer was charged with failing to provide life-saving aid. And Betelgeuse? Question mark? More on that when we get to that topic.
Okay,
Okay.
let's go.
All right. So Canada's parliament has passed a bill that will cover the full cost of contraception and diabetes drugs for Canadians. The Liberal government said it is the initial phase of a plan that would expand to become a publicly funded national pharmacare program. The government estimates 1 in 5 Canadians struggle to pay for prescription drugs. The federal government still has to negotiate individual funding commitments with Canada's provinces and territories. A report from Parliament's budget watchdog estimates this bill will increase federal spending by $1.9 billion over the next 5 years. Canadians currently pay for prescription drugs through a mix of private, public, and out-of-pocket plans. The program will cover 100% of the costs of diabetes and contraception medication for those who do not have drug plan coverage and out-of-pocket costs for those who do. The federal government estimates that 9 million Canadian women of reproductive age will have access to common types of contraception under the plan. Birth control pills and IUDs can cost between $100 and $300 a year. Definitely true. The Society of OBs and Gynecologists of Canada hailed the bill as a historic achievement. I would agree. Women across the country will be able to make choices about contraception based on what's best for their lives, not their wallets. In addition, some 3.7 million Canadians have been diagnosed with diabetes. Diabetes drugs covered include insulin for people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, which can cost between $900 and $1,700 a year, and metformin, yeah, it's a lot for insulin, which helps lower blood sugar levels for people with type 2 diabetes and potentially, I want to add this part. It is also for people who have PCOS. I've talked about this because PCOS can mimic diabetes. I am curious if people with PCOS who have been prescribed metformin, if this bill would cover that. I would actually be really interested to know that. Um, Speaking to reporters on Thursday from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit, Prime Minister Justin, well, not Prime, this was old guy, but former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the bill's
Mm.
passage real progress. It's not that old. It's like this year. But and urged promises to quickly move forward with signing agreements. The federal health minister has said he hopes that some provinces will have the plan in place by the end of this year, with all on board by next spring.
I wonder.
I was
I,
actually going to say that I wonder if this is still going to happen, but
yeah.
because this is still a liberal government,
Uh,
it could still go through.
mm.
I would have questioned this more if the conservatives won or NDP or whatever. But because it is still a liberal party, I do wonder like if this might not get affected. I
What
don't
do you what do you what do you think? Is this a good thing or a bad thing for like Canadians in general? Or
um well, I will say Canadians in general, it's probably going to mean more taxes. This is
Mm.
coming out of taxpayers' money, right? In order to do this, at the end of the day. But at the same time, as a woman who has had to get contraception at some point, I mean, I've been on birth control pill before, um, and I've had to have, I know I've used metformin. Um, I don't have to pay for metformin because I have a plan, but for the birth control pill at one point, I was paying that out of pocket, but through like a Planned Parenthood type situation. Um, so that is what I had to pay that. I had to pay like $10 or something, which is obviously cheaper than what birth control is. But that's still like $10 a month for a person who's in her early 20s. What if that was eliminated? What if I didn't have to pay for that? And I can trust that I'm not going to get pregnant and then that's going to fall at some point in some way on the government as well. So why,
Well, yeah, Mark Carney just announced I think it was yesterday morning
mhm,
that basically tax cut for the middle class
I heard
starting
that.
July 1st.
Yeah, I heard
So
that.
I don't know if that helps.
I would imagine that helps.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
yeah,
know. I
yeah,
mean, I guess that kind of would be considered middle class at this point, but like that would help. Like, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, but again, still like I don't know how much birth control costs these days. I haven't been on a pill in like 8 years, but
Right.
it it's not cheap.
Hmm.
I birth control pills in general for those who don't have plans, they're not cheap. And what if you don't want to use condoms? What if,
Yeah,
you are allergic to latex? They do have latex-free condoms, but, what
right.
if like that's just not a possibility for you either? Because that costs
Mm.
money. So,
So,
I don't
so,
know.
is this going to be like prescribed, or is this going to be like out in the open where it's on the shelf?
You still
You can
have to
just,
be prescribed
okay,
metformin and or contraception if it's IUD or birth control pills,
right,
because not
right.
every birth
Yeah,
control
yeah, yeah.
pill fits one person. So you still need to be prescribed that. But it just means that you can go to a pharmacy, you'll have maybe this plan or something they'll have in place for people,
Mhm.
and you don't have to pay for anything. Kind of like the dental plan, right?
Right, right.
Show you have proof of that, and then you
Mhm.
don't have to pay anything that goes through the government. So that is
Mhm.
I would love it as a person who's a woman who's in a different phase in life
Mhm.
that they do something about reproductive medication in terms of ones who are trying to get pregnant and whose plans do not cover those medications because like I'll just say this, I'm in that. We've talked about it already, not in detail, but my medications from start to finish cost nearly $500 each cycle. It's not as bad as what it could be, but it's still really expensive. Um, and my plan only covers the cheapest medication, which is $36. The others, which is 110 and 290, not covered. I would love if something could be done about that. People who are not necessarily in IVF or IUI who wouldn't, you know, have those fundings at their hands because of that. So I would love that. This is the person who's in a different phase in life. Um, but I don't know if they'll ever do anything about that, if this is just how it is. But anyways,
Okay. Okay.
um, let's continue. So British Columbia has already signed a memorandum of understand agreement with Ottawa, but two provinces, Alberta and Quebec, have indicated they may opt out of the program, accusing Ottawa of interfering in provincial matters. Who cares? This isn't about you. I think of the women, you know?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do, and I want to say this. I think it has a lot to do with Justin, not just
Right, maybe.
yeah, and that a
But
little bit, and then
don't make it about that. This is a man or who was a man in power
mhm.
who is thinking about making life a little easier for women, making healthcare more accessible to
Mhm.
women. And
Yeah.
I'm sure when it comes to the diabetes drugs, though, the metformin or
Mhm.
insulin, that's obviously not just about women,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're making that readily accessible to people who just don't have that. Why
Mhm.
would you, despite the fact that you don't like somebody, why would you basically just like put that on your
Well,
citizens that are in that
yeah.
province
Yeah.
because you don't like somebody? It's fucking
It
dumb.
it might have to do with something like that, or it just might have to just like do with like they have to look into it, delays and all that stuff. There,
Right.
I don't know.
But I mean, not every matter can be
So
just a
quite a lot.
provincial
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Everything comes from the federal government and then you go accordingly. Same situation in the States. That's how that works. So I don't understand why this is such, we've seen this before with other situations. I think it was the dental plan too, or maybe it was something else. But it was just like you're getting involved in provincial matters. Well, those things will not be available to provinces if the federal government isn't the one who's starting that ball. And you can
Yeah.
take it if you want to.
I just I don't know why it took them so long with that one too. That the dental thing
The dental
was.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like I said, it probably has to. Like I said, it probably has to do a lot of uh legislations going through, and it takes a long time for the
Things
process.
take a
Or
long
it could
time.
possibly be the prime minister at the time, and one of those
Maybe.
two things.
But I
So
mean, it's
hopefully,
a godsend because like,
yeah.
my brother, he has it
Mhm.
due to his circumstances. I think my grandparents too, I think depends on the circumstances. I can't remember like the rules, but I know my brother for sure does. And it's a godsend because my brother doesn't have benefits. Um, he isn't working. He's neurodivergent, there's different things. And this is perfect. It helps with my mom at the end of the day because you would be the one who had to pay for it. It helps my mom at the end of the day be able to make sure his teeth are getting clean and they're paying for it.
Mhm.
And there's nothing, there's no out of pocket. You basically just get this card, I guess, in the mail, and then you do present that one time as if like a benefits plan, present that one time to your dentist, and then they have that in the records and the government pays. You don't have to pay anything out of pocket. It's incredible. So imagine if they had something like that now for what we're just talking about. Like that's incredible. And you
Yeah.
know that that's always going to readily be available to you if you're on birth control or IUD or whatever, or metformin.
Yeah.
Because it's not a cheap drug. Metformin is not cheap. If you're getting the name brand metformin, it's not cheap. Um, so opposition conservative leader, as we know, Pierre Poilievre, whose party, so this is when they were in the head of the polls.
Mhm.
He does not support the legislation. So let's thank our lucky stars then that this man is not in power.
And
Kind of
that's
leans
yeah.
back to what you said about him wanting to take away like women's rights.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
women's rights, like different. Like I'm not saying that he's going to take away all women's rights from but like the process of newer legislations of women's like rights, like he won't pass. So like he
right.
probably won't pass on them. So like
He must be a joy to be married to. Seriously, he must be a real joy to be married to. God.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Some
he is married to
he is married, yeah.
Latina woman. So
Yeah, and she's beautiful.
yeah,
Like
she is.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, okay, let me say this. Let me say this. Pierre Polyev is not an ugly man. He's actually quite good looking.
Mhm.
But when you have an ugly heart, like it doesn't help. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, uh, yeah, like I said, he
Mm.
must be a joy to live with. And Latino
Yeah.
women are spicy and don't take your nonsense. So I'm surprised. Anyways, um, some critics of the bill have also warned it lacks clarity. In a statement, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce said the government only recently confirmed pharmacare would be a universal single-payer system. Quote, they chose a costly model that will deteriorate rather than improve access to prescription drugs, violate provincial jurisdiction, and further burden Canadian taxpayers. The pharmacare bill stems from a deal between the NDP party and the minority liberals. Well, they're a minority now, right? Still, or are they not?
Give me a second. No, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're minority.
The
Sorry,
minority
I'm
now,
looking.
still.
I'm looking
Okay.
at majority. Sorry. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
minority.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The left-wing party promised to prop up the Liberals on the condition that the government launched the drug program along with a handful of other priorities. The NDP pulled out of that deal in early September, so September 2024, making a snap general election before the one currently scheduled. Well, that was October 2025, which clearly isn't happening now. Um, Canadians spent an estimate of $41 billion on prescription drugs last year, with $15 billion covered by private plans and just over $8 billion out of pocket, according to the Canadian Institute for Health Information. That is a lot.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's that article. Let's move on
Yeah.
to the next one. So, a Durham regional police officer has been arrested and charged with failing to provide the necessities of life, following an internal investigation into an incident that took place in March 2024. So, Constable James Wright, who is a 23-year veteran of the service, allegedly failed to render medical assistance or first aid to a person in distress when responding to a call in Whitby, according to Durham police. The individual was left in the care of a family member who later sought medical attention, police say. They were later transported to the hospital and subsequently released.
Right.
The DRPS Professional Standards Unit launched an investigation into the officer's actions after a
Mhm.
review of the call raised, after a review of the call raised concerns of alleged criminality. Wright has also been suspended from duty with pay.
Wow.
Okay, listen, I'm sorry. Can we do a little bit better? Because you're saying that this guy potentially didn't give life-saving efforts to this person.
Mm.
Potentially, that could have been a criminal act. Like if it, I don't know if they're saying if it was intentional or whatever, but if it was intentional, you're going to suspend him with pay? Why do police get everything? Yeah, no matter what they do, they get everything. Anyways, but yes, that's what happened. Um, and good old in Durham region. So let that part sink in. But anyways, that's that. We're gonna have a little more fun now with
Mm.
Beetlejuice. And no, I don't mean Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice. I mean the actual
Oh.
Beetlejuice in the sky.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
The
Okay.
constellation.
That's what I thought. That's what I
They are doing a second Beetlejuice though. Or third, I should say, Beetlejuice.
yeah, third one.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm.
Yes, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Beetlejuice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The insect, right?
What? No, it's a constellation
Oh,
in the sky.
okay.
There's
Oh,
no Beetlejuice bug, is there?
Beatles, but
Beetles, but not
yeah.
Beetlejuice.
Okay. All right, my bad. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the brightest stars in the night sky, Betelgeuse, may not be on the brink. Oh, sorry, may not be on the brink of exploding as a supernova, according to a new study of the star's brightening and dimming. Instead, recent research shows that the observed pulsing of the starlight is probably caused by an unseen companion star orbiting Betelgeuse. So I guess they're saying that Betelgeuse potentially was going to explode, but now they're saying that might not actually be happening. So formerly named Alpha Orbi, the Beetle Buddy, that's so cute, as astrophysicist Jared Goldberg calls it. I love Beetle Buddy. That is so cute. Acts like a snowplow as it orbits Betelgeuse, pushing light, blocking dust out of the way, and temporarily making Betelgeuse seem brighter. Um,
Right.
at least in the sky, maybe not Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice. Anyways,
Mhm.
Goldberg and his colleagues present their simulations of the process in a paper accepted for publication in the Astrophysical Journal. The findings are published on the air exiv preprint server, whatever that means.
Mm.
Well, we ruled out every inst um, intrinsic, whatever, source of variability that we could think of as to why the brightening and dimming was happening in this way, says Goldberg. Um, and he's the lead author and Flatiron Research Fellow on the Flatiron Institute Center for oh God, these things are so bad. Okay, the only hypothesis that seemed to fit is that Betelgeuse has a companion. So Goldberg co-authored the study with Meredith Joyce of the University of Wyoming, and that's a name that I cannot say. Laszlo, I'm going to say, Molnar of Konkoly Observatory at the Hun-Ren Research Center for Astronomy and Earth Sources in Hungary. So Betelgeuse is a red giant star around 100,000 times the brightness of our sun. So
Okay.
it's bright and more than 400 million times the volume. So it is huge. The star is nearing the end of its lifespan. And when it dies, the resulting explosion will be bright enough to see during the day for weeks. That's so cool. I'm not saying I want it to explode, but I'm just saying that's so cool.
Mhm.
Astronomers can predict when Betelgeuse will die by effectively checking its pulse. It's a variable star, meaning it gets brighter and dimmer, pulsing like a heartbeat. In Betelgeuse's case, there are two heartbeats, one that pulses on a timescale a little longer than a year, and one that pulses on a timescale of about 6 years. One of these heartbeats in Betelgeuse's fundamental mode, a pattern of brightening and dimming that's whatever. These words, I can't. To the star itself. If the star's fundamental mode is its long scale heartbeat, then Betelgeuse could be ready to blow sooner than expected. However, if its fundamental mode is its short scale heartbeat, so the one that's a year, um, as several studies suggest, then its longer heartbeat is a phenomenon called a long secondary period. In that case, this longer brightening and dimming would be caused by something external to the star. Scientists still don't know for sure what causes long secondary periods, but one leading theory is that they arise when a star has a companion that circles it, like our beetle buddy, and barrels through the cosmic dust that is produced and expelled by the star. The displaced dust alters how much starlight reaches Earth, changing the star's apparent brightness. The researchers explored whether other processes may have caused the long secondary period, such as the churning of the star's interior or periodic changes in the star's powerful magnetic field. After combining data from direct observations of Betelgeuse with advanced computer models that simulate the star's activity, the team concluded that Beetle Buddy is by far the most likely explanation. Nothing else added up, Goldberg said. Basically, if there's no Beetle Buddy, then that means there's something way weirder going on, something impossible to explain with current physics.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So the hold on, sorry.
Oh yeah, we talked about a lot of like stars in past
Yeah,
episode,
yeah,
Saturn.
Beetlejuice. I knew nothing about Beetlejuice. I honestly did not know it was a star until I saw this article.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, like Beetlejuice. And it's spelled the way, like, if you watch the movie Beetlejuice, you
Mm-hmm.
know how it's spelled like beetle and then juice.
Mm-hmm.
But in the movie, when you see them mention Beetlejuice, like when they see the writing of his name, that's how the star is spelled. So it's Betelgeuse. That's how Beetlejuice is spelled. So, but I just never knew like it was actually like a star. I did know that. Um, it is difficult to say what the companion actually is beyond providing mass and orbital constraints. A sun-like star is the most probable type of companion, but that is by no means conclusive. A more exotic hypothesis um, that he personally likes, though the opinions of his co-authors may differ, is that the companion is a neutron star, the core of a star that has already gone supernova, so pretty blown up. However, in that case, we would expect to see evidence of this with X-ray observations, and we haven't. I think we should look again. Next, the team will play paparazzi, trying to snap images of the beetle buddy with telescopes, as there will be a potential window of visibility around. Well, this is a little older, so, or no, maybe this is this year, December 6th, because I think this is this year. We need to confirm that beetle buddy actually exists, since our result is based on inference, not on direct detection. So we're working on observation proposals. The researchers note that this study was only possible through team science, without each of us considering this problem from very different angles. Laszlo, as an expert in space-based observations and data analysis, Jared, as someone who studies and simulates massive stars, and then this is Goldberg, as a 1D modeler. The work, oh no, this is Joyce. I don't know who Joyce is. I think we skipped Joyce. So, anyway, the team is also excited to have new information about a long-studied celestial body. Betelgeuse has been the target of countless studies since the dawn of modern astrophysics, and yet there's still room to make significant new discoveries. In this case, a sun-like star hiding in plain sight is the immense glare of a red supergiant. That is what excites this is Laszlo the most. And that's it. That's the end of it. But
Okay.
I just didn't realize Beetlejuice was so big. It's this. It basically looks like like a sun, and the sun's a star. So that's it's crazy. Anyways,
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to be like talking about a lot of stars in the near future because I think we talked about. Oh my God, I can't remember.
I can't
We
remember
talked
everything.
about was it the spider or something like that, and then
Oh, we talked about the devil. No, that wasn't a
the
star though. That was a comet.
comet,
The devil
the,
comet. That was a
the devil comet,
comet. Yeah.
and then yeah, we talked about like
I know we've talked about a star before too, but I can't remember what star that was now.
um y- yeah, we talked about like a few stars and like I said, I'm sure we won't be talking about more that's
Yeah.
coming out in the sky. So it's
Yeah.
like,
We've talked about the penguin one. I think there was a star that had exploded,
mhm,
and the shape of it when it exploded. I can't remember what it looked like now, but that we did talk about. That was the one. And then we saw like the penguin
yeah, it's spot,
constellation one too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, we talked about spider. You said that's not a star, that just spider
the
on
penguin
Mars.
one, no, the devil one was a comet that I'm pretty sure it's gone now. It's dead now. Um, we it did pass over Earth. I think you could have seen it.
Mhm.
But that was like earlier or towards the end of last year.
Right.
Um, and then yeah, and then that's basically that was
Yeah.
that. I mean, the sun is an interesting star, but the sun, honest to God, the sun scares the hell out of me. Only because of like what they talk about with the sun in terms of like if it were to explode and what that means for Earth.
Mhm.
That's one that I cannot. I ignore it as much as possible because I don't want to think about the sun exploding.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Dope. They basically said if the okay, I don't want to. Oh, sorry, guys. Trigger warning for what I'm about to say if you need to skip this for your own mental health. But they literally said, like, if the sun were to explode, we would basically have, I think they said 8 or 10 minutes where we'd have no clue that it exploded, before like basically we explode. Like our whole solar system depends on the sun. So if the sun explodes, we too will explode. So
Interesting.
the sun could have exploded right now and we would have no clue. Sorry, guys. I said trigger warning in the beginning before I started this. But anyways, yeah.
Interesting. And wow. Hopefully it doesn't do that. 'Cause
Hopefully
I don't
not.
want Okay. All right. All right. So that ends episode 103 of the Next Tape podcast. The Next Tape podcast is available now on all podcast platforms. We also have a website called Tanika.
Next take. Oh, wait. Yeah, wait. Next take podcast on podpage.io.
All right. And where else are we
Face
at?
Facebook and Instagram at Next Take Podcast, and then Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Next Take Pod.
And also, you can contact us on our email at mikeltanyka@gmail.com. That is mikeltanyka@gmail.com. So, yeah, we talked about three things on this episode. Uh, and would you like to explain or
Yeah. So we
talk
talked
about?
about. Hmm?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. We talked about the potential plan that's going to be put in place with the contraception drugs as well as diabetes drugs. We talked about the officer that is suspended with pay for not aiding someone in life-saving
Mhm.
stuff. And then we also talked about Betelgeuse, the star. You know what? Michael Keaton is a star. Okay, continue. That's that.
All right. Okay. Um. Yeah. Guess I have nothing else to say. You have nothing else to say, Tanika?
Nope.
All right. I'm Mikkel, and
And I'm Tanika.
we're out until
Um, I think it's Wednesday.
Wednesday. All right. Peace, guys.
Bye.